chosen. 1. Spiritually. I need you to freeze right where you are. Do not let your mind scroll past this moment. Do not let that voice of doubt whisper that this message is too good to be true for you. That is the voice of a prisoner who has been in the dark so long the light hurts their eyes. I know why you clicked. You are tired. Not just need a nap tired, you are soul tired. You are suffering from battle fatigue because you have been holding the front line for your bloodline for years without relief. You have been waiting for the other shoe to drop. You are bracing for the next impact. But God sent me to tell you to unclench your spirit. The court of heaven has just adjourned regarding your case. The evidence of your struggle has been reviewed. The silence of God has ended. And the verdict is in. The hardest part is not just over. It has been counted as payment. You are not just surviving anymore. You are being reimbursed. Stop, breathe, look at where you are right now. Maybe you are sitting in your car in a parking lot, staring at the steering wheel, wondering how you are going to summon the energy to walk through your front door and put on that mask of strength for your family. Or maybe you are lying in bed, the blue light of this screen illuminating the tears you promised yourself you would not cry tonight. You feel a heaviness in your chest that no amount of sleep seems to fix. It feels like you are carrying a physical weight right behind your ribcage. That is not just stress. That is the residue of a war you have been fighting alone. Listen to me closely because your destiny depends on what happens in the next few minutes. Do not leave this video until the final second. I am not asking for your view time. I am asking for your survival. By the end of this transmission, I am going to reveal the concept of shalom, which is the divine law of payback that you are now legally entitled to. I am going to hand you the map of the 7 specific traps the enemy has set for you in the next 40 days and exactly how to dismantle them. And at the very end, we are going to perform an activation ceremony to seal this new reality into your bloodline. If you leave early, you leave without your armor. Stay. This is a divine appointment. Now let us address this exhaustion. You have asked yourself 1,000 times, what is wrong with me? You have looked at others who seem to breeze through life while you feel like you are dragging a corpse through mud. You have wondered if you are depressed. You have wondered if you have lost your faith. You have wondered if God has lifted his hand from you. Let me diagnose you right now. You are not depressed. You are exhausted from being the anchor. You are suffering from spiritual battle fatigue. The Bible shows us this exact pattern in Psalm 13 verse 1. David asks, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me?" Most people read that and think David was just sad. But if you dig into the Hebrew word for forget, which is shakach, it implies something much more painful. It does not mean God had a memory lapse. It means to ignore or to cease to care for. David was not afraid that God had amnesia. He was terrified that God had stopped caring. He was feeling the crushing weight of performing his duties while feeling invisible to his commander. That is exactly where you are. You have been faithful. You have kept praying. You have kept giving. You have kept showing up. But you feel ignored. You feel like your file has been lost on God's desk. This fatigue comes because you are the designated strong one. When your family has a crisis, they call you. When your friends are falling apart, they call you. But when you are bleeding, you drive yourself to the hospital because you do not want to be a burden to anyone. You have absorbed the shockwaves for everyone around you, and your spirit is frayed. You are like Elijah in 1 Kings chapter 19. Look at the context of that story. Elijah had just called down fire from heaven. He had just defeated the prophets of Baal. He had just outrun a chariot. He had a massive public victory. And immediately after that he sat under a broom tree and asked God to take his life. Why? He wasn't weak. He was biologically and spiritually depleted. He had given out so much power that he had nothing left for himself. That is your diagnosis. You are not under a curse. You are under the weight of your own output. You have been giving $100 worth of energy every day, but only receiving $10 worth of deposits. And the deficit has finally caught up to you. That pressure you feel behind your eyes is not sin. It is the cost of the anointing you carry. The enemy has tried to use this exhaustion to whisper a lie to you. He tells you that this tiredness is proof that you have failed. He tells you that if you were truly chosen, you would feel joyful and energetic all the time. That is a lie from the pit of hell. Your exhaustion is your medal. It is proof that you stayed in the fight when anyone else would have quit years ago. You need to understand that this feeling of being forgotten is actually a strategic positioning. In the ancient world, when a king was preparing a prince to take over a territory, he would often send him away from the palace into isolation. He would cut off communication, not to punish the son, but to force the son to develop his own authority without leaning on the father's constant validation. The silence was not rejection. The silence was the final exam. But here is where you have misunderstood everything. You think this silence and this struggle have been about testing your endurance. You think God is up there watching you suffer just to see how much pain you can take before you break. You think he is measuring your pain tolerance like a cruel scientist. You are dead wrong. The silence of God in this last season was not a punishment, and it certainly wasn't because he was ignoring you. The silence had a purpose more terrifying and more glorious than you can imagine. It was never about seeing how long you could last. That was just the cover story. The silence had a purpose more terrifying and more glorious than you can imagine. It was never about seeing how long you could last. That was just the cover story. But before I tear the cover off and show you the truth, we have to go back to that silence. You know exactly what I am talking about. It is the specific silence that fills your room right after you say Amen. You pour your heart out, you cry until your throat burns. You quote scripture back to God. You remind him of his promises, and then you wait. You wait for a shift in the atmosphere. You wait for a phone call. You wait for a check in the mail. You wait for a text message, but the atmosphere stays heavy. The phone stays black. The mailbox stays empty. And in that gap between your desperate prayer and God's apparent inactivity, a specific type of pain begins to grow. It is the pain of the silent scream. This is exactly where David was in Psalm 13. When we read the Psalms in church, we read them with a polite, poetic voice. But David wrote them in the dirt. He wrote them while hiding in caves. When he wrote, "How long, O Lord, will you hide your face from me forever?" he was not asking a theological question. He was having a breakdown. He was looking at the timeline of his life and seeing a discrepancy. He had the oil of kingship on his head, but he had the dust of a fugitive on his feet. The promise said palace, the reality said cave, and God was not explaining the delay. You are living in that discrepancy right now. You know you are called. You feel the greatness stirring in your belly. You have dreams that are so big they scare you. But your external reality looks like a prison cell. Your bank account contradicts your prophecy. Your relationship status contradicts your destiny. And the silence from heaven feels like a betrayal. So to survive this silence, you have constructed a narrative. You have told yourself a story to make sense of the pain, and this is the story you believe. You tell yourself that God is training your endurance. You tell yourself that this is a spiritual gymnasium, and God is the trainer, adding more and more weight to the bar to see how strong you can get. You think he is stretching you. You think he is teaching you patience. You think he is toughening your skin so you can handle the pressures of the next level. This logic makes perfect sense to you. It aligns with everything you have been taught. You think I am suffering because I am a soldier, and soldiers must be tough. If God answered me too quickly, I would be weak. If he gave me the blessing yesterday, I would not appreciate it. So he is making me wait. He is making me bleed. He is making me sweat. It is all a test of my stamina. It is a test of my grit. It is a test of my ability to hold on when my fingers are slipping. And because you believe this is an endurance test, you have engaged in a dangerous game of spiritual survival. You wake up every morning and you put on your imaginary armor. You grit your teeth. You force a smile. You tell everyone I am blessed and highly favored, while inside you are screaming. You push through the exhaustion. You ignore the battle fatigue we just talked about. You tell yourself, just one more day. Just one more week. If I just hold on a little longer, God will finally be impressed with my strength and ring the bell to end the round. But this endurance mindset creates an opening for the enemy. While you are busy trying to be strong, he slips in through the back door with a whisper. He does not come to you with a pitchfork and horns. He comes with logic. He comes to you at 3 a.m. when you are staring at the ceiling, and he whispers directly into your ear. Listen to what he says. He says, "Look at you. You are trying so hard. You are praying so much, but nothing is changing. Look at your friends from high school. They do not pray. They do not fast. They do not serve God. And look at their lives. They are buying houses. They are getting married. They are traveling the world. They are happy. And here you are, God's special soldier, sitting in the dark alone and broke. If God really loved you, why would he treat you like this? If you were really chosen, why is your life harder than everyone else's? Maybe you made it all up. Maybe you didn't hear God. Maybe you are just crazy." He uses the silence to dismantle your confidence. He uses your endurance against you. He tells you that the reason you are still waiting is because you are not doing enough. So you try harder, you pray longer, you fast more days, you read more chapters, you run on that treadmill of endurance until your legs give out and you collapse. You are trying to earn God's voice with your sweat. You are trying to purchase your breakthrough with your pain. But listen to me, chosen one. I need you to hear this in your spirit. If this was really a test of your endurance, you would have been dead 3 years ago. God is not a cruel taskmaster who enjoys watching his children suffer just to see how tough they are. He does not need to break you to build you. He does not need to crush your mind to expand your spirit. If the only point of this season was to see if you could survive, you have already proven that 1,000 times over. You have survived things that would have sent other people to the psychiatric ward. You have walked through fires that would have turned others to ash. If God was testing your strength, you passed that test in the first month. So why has it lasted for years? Why is the weight still there? Why is the silence still deafening? Because you have misdiagnosed the test. You are studying for a subject that you already passed, while the real exam is on a completely different page. God is not testing your stamina. He is not testing your ability to suffer. He is testing something far more dangerous and far more critical to your destiny. The test is not about how much pain you can take. The test is about who you become when the pain doesn't stop. The test is about who you become when the pain doesn't stop. And this brings us to the most critical revelation of your entire life. I need you to lean in. I need you to quiet every other voice in the room. Because what I am about to say will shatter the false narrative you have been living under for years. You thought this was an endurance test. You thought God was testing your stamina. You thought he was testing how much weight you could carry. You were wrong. If God wanted to test your endurance, he would have just given you more work. If he wanted to test your physical strength, he would have given you a labor. But he didn't just give you labor, he gave you silence. He gave you delay. He gave you the distinct feeling of being overlooked while less qualified people were promoted around you. This was never an endurance test. This was an identity test. Let that sink into your spirit. There is a massive difference. An endurance test checks your capacity to survive. An identity test checks your authority to rule. God already knows you can survive. You proved that years ago. The reason the fire was turned up 7 times hotter in this last season wasn't to see if you would burn. It was to see if you would bow. It was to see if you would change who you are, just because your circumstances changed. Think about a king who is stripped of his crown, his robes, and his palace. He is thrown into a dungeon in rags. An endurance test asks, can this man survive the rats and the mold? But an identity test asks, does this man still walk like a king even when he is wearing rags? Does he still speak with authority even when he is in chains? Does he still carry the posture of royalty even when his environment says he is a slave? That is what God has been watching. He wasn't watching to see if you would cry. Tears are natural. He was watching to see if you would let the circumstances define you, or if you would let his promise define you. Most people, when they lose their job, or their relationship, or their money, they lose their identity. They become their trauma. They start saying, I am a victim. I am a failure. I am broken. They let the external lack create an internal void. But you chose differently. And I know you did because you are still watching this video. Even when you had no money, you still tried to be generous. Even when your heart was breaking, you still tried to encourage others. Even when you felt like dying, you still woke up and tried to serve a purpose. That was you passing the identity test. You proved that your character is not rented from your circumstances. Your character is owned by your spirit. You proved that you are a chosen one, not because of what you have in your hand, but because of who you are in your heart. To understand the magnitude of this, we have to zoom into the life of Joseph. We always talk about Joseph's coat of many colors and his dream, but we rush past the prison. I want you to mentally walk into that Egyptian dungeon with me right now. Feel the dampness on the walls. Smell the stench of despair. It is dark. It is hopeless. Joseph has been betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused of rape, and thrown into a pit. If this was an endurance test, Joseph would have just sat in the corner, eating his moldy bread, trying not to die, waiting for God to rescue him. But look at what the scripture actually says. Genesis 39 says that even in the prison, Joseph was put in charge of all the other prisoners. Pause and think about the absurdity of that. He was a prisoner. He was wearing the same chains as the murderers and thieves. But he didn't act like a prisoner. He acted like a governor. He organized the dungeon. He managed the resources. He interpreted dreams. He ministered to the butler and the baker. Why did he do that? Why would you work hard for a system that enslaved you? Why would you serve people in a place you hated? Because Joseph knew something that most people miss. He knew that his location had changed, but his identity had not. He knew he was a ruler. So even when his territory was a 10 by 10 stone cell, he ruled that cell with excellence. He didn't wait until he got to the palace to act like a prime minister. He practiced being a prime minister in the prison. That is exactly what you have been doing. You have been faithful in a job that is beneath your calling. You have been excellent in a house that is too small for your vision. You have been leading and guiding people even while you felt lost yourself. You have been organizing the chaos around you even while your own life felt chaotic. You thought you were just surviving. No, you were ruling in the dark. You were proving to the courts of heaven that you don't need a crown to be a king. You just need your DNA. And that is why the test had to be so long. God had to be sure. He had to know that your identity was bulletproof, so that when he hands you the billions, when he hands you the influence, when he hands you the nations, you won't be corrupted by the power, because you weren't corrupted by the power. Poverty. Now let us go deeper. Let us look at the book of Job. This is the ultimate identity test. The entire book opens with a conversation between God and Satan. Satan doesn't say, Job is weak. Satan says, Job is a mercenary. Satan accuses Job of having a transactional relationship with God. He says, does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not put a hedge around him? Satan's argument was simple. He said, God, Job, only serves you because you pay him. You give him camels and sheep and children and health. If you take away the paycheck, he will quit the job. He will curse you to your face. That was the wager. It wasn't about pain tolerance. It was about identity. Satan claimed Job's identity was a man who serves God for profit. God claimed Job's identity was a man who serves God for love. So the test began. The hedge was removed. The paycheck was stopped. The camels died. The children died. The health failed. And you know this feeling. You know the feeling of doing everything right and having everything go wrong. You know the feeling of the hedge being removed. You have felt the wind of the enemy hitting your face and wondered where your protection went. And in that moment, the enemy was watching you just like he watched Job. He was waiting for you to curse God. He was waiting for you to say, this isn't fair, I quit. He was waiting for you to abandon your post. But look at you. You are battered. You are bruised. You have questions. You have cried oceans of tears. But you have not cursed him. You have not walked away. You are still here, seeking his face. You are still here, wanting his will. Do you realize what that means? It means the enemy lost the bet. It means you proved that your love for God is not based on his performance, it is based on his person. You proved that you are not a mercenary, you are a son. You are not a hireling, you are a daughter. This revelation changes everything about how you view your pain. The heaviness you feel right now. I want you to focus on it. That pressure in your chest. That weight on your shoulders that makes you want to lie down and sleep for a week. The enemy told you that weight is depression. He told you it is anxiety. He told you it is the spirit of heaviness. I am here to reframe that sensation for you right now. In the Hebrew language, the word for glory is kavod. And do you know what kavod literally means? It means heavy. It means weighty. It means substance. When the glory of God came into the temple in the Old Testament, it was so heavy that the priests could not stand up to minister. They fell on their faces under the sheer density of God's presence. That pressure you feel is not a mental illness. It is the kavod. It is the weight of the glory that God is depositing into your spirit. You feel heavy because your assignment is massive. You feel heavy because you are carrying a cargo of destiny that is too big for a normal person. You are like a cargo ship loaded with gold sitting low in the water. A light ship with no cargo bobs around easily on the waves, but a heavy ship sits deep. You are sitting deep in the waters of life right now, not because you are sinking, but because you are loaded. God has been downloading the blueprint for your next season into your spirit, and it has spiritual mass. Your human nervous system is straining under the voltage of this new identity. That is why you are tired. Your spirit is upgrading to carry a level of influence and authority that would crush someone who hadn't been through the identity test. So, stop rebuking the weight. Stop trying to pray it away. Instead, I want you to perform a mental action right now. Close your eyes for a second if you can. Imagine that weight on your shoulders is not a burden. Imagine it is a heavy velvet mantle, a royal robe. It is heavy because it is lined with gold. It is heavy because it carries the authority of the kingdom. Feel it settle on your shoulders. Adjust your posture to carry it. Straighten your spine. Lift your chin. This is not the weight of the world. This is the weight of your coronation. You are feeling the physical sensation of your promotion before you see the material manifestation of it. So here is the summary of your last season. You were not ignored. You were hidden for your protection while your identity was being forged in the fire. You were not being tested for endurance. You were being tested for royalty. You were not depressed. You were experiencing the heavy download of the kavod glory. And the most important thing is this: you passed. I am not saying you passed perfectly. I am not saying you didn't complain. Job complained. David complained. But you stayed. You kept your rank. You held your position. And because you passed the identity test, the laws of the spiritual universe must now engage the next phase. The testing phase is legally concluded. The silence is legally broken. And now that your identity is confirmed, heaven is authorized to release the inheritance that belongs to that identity. You see, God could not release the resources of a king to someone who still thought like a slave. It would have destroyed you. But now that you know who you are, the resources are unlocking. But listen to me. This next phase is not what you think it is. You are expecting restoration. You are expecting God to just put things back to how they were before the attack. You want your old life back just with a little more peace. But God has no intention of doing that. Restoration is too small for what you have endured. Restoration is basic addition. God is about to move you into multiplication. There is an ancient Hebrew concept that goes far beyond simple restoration. It is the legal precedent for what happens when a righteous person is unjustly targeted by the enemy. It is a word that you need to write on your heart. It is a word that you need to speak over your bank account, over your family, and over your health. It is the key that unlocks the vault of your back pay. It is not just a word, it is a divine verdict. The word you need to brand onto your consciousness is shalom. Say it in your mind right now. Shalom. It is a Hebrew word that appears in the Bible to describe what God does for his people after a season of devastation. But to understand why this word holds the key to your bank account and your future, we have to go back to the scene of the crime. We have to go to Joel, chapter 2, verse 25. You have probably heard this verse quoted 1,000 times in church services. It says, "I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten." On the surface, that sounds beautiful. It sounds comforting. But the English translation of the word restore is actually too weak to carry the weight of what God is promising you. When we hear the word restore in English, we think of fixing up an old house. We think of gluing a broken vase back together. If you lose $1,000 and I give you $1,000 back, I have restored you. You are back to zero. You are back to where you started before the loss. But that is not what shalom means. If God only brought you back to where you were before the attack, he would not be a God of justice. He would just be a God of maintenance. And you do not serve a God of maintenance. You serve a God of multiplication. The Hebrew word shalom does not mean to simply return an item. It implies a sense of completion. It means to make whole. It means to finish. But most importantly, in a legal context, it means to make amends by paying back the full value, plus additional compensation for the trouble. Think about it this way. If a thief steals your car and wrecks it, and the judge simply orders the thief to return the wrecked car to you, that is not justice. That is an insult. Justice demands that the thief pays for a brand new car, plus the rental car you had to use while you waited, plus the emotional distress of the theft, plus the time you lost dealing with the police. The thief ends up paying 5 times what the car was worth. That is shalom. So when God says in Joel 2:25, I will shalom the years the locust has eaten, he is not saying he will give you your old life back. He is saying he is going to calculate the value of every sleepless night. He is going to calculate the value of every tear you cried. He is going to calculate the interest on every prayer you prayed that went unanswered for 10 years. And he is going to compel the enemy to pay it all back in a lump sum of glory. You need to visualize this because your imagination is the womb of your miracle. I want you to mentally step into the courtroom of heaven right now. This is not a metaphor. This is a spiritual reality. The Ancient of Days is seated on the throne. The atmosphere is thick with justice, and the books are open. For the last season, the enemy, which the Bible calls the accuser of the brethren, has been standing in this court pointing his finger at you. He has been demanding your destruction. He has been saying, look at their generational bloodline. Look at their mistakes. They deserve to suffer. They deserve to be broke. They deserve to be lonely. And because there were open doors in your life, legal access points through trauma or fear, the judge had to allow the trial to proceed. That was your season of testing. That was the identity test we just talked about. But because you passed that test, because you did not curse God, because you stood firm in your identity, the gavel has come down. The trial is over. And now the sentencing phase has begun. But here is the twist. You are not the one being sentenced. The enemy is. God is looking at the thief who stole your prime years. He is looking at the spirit of delay that ate your 20s or your 30s. He is looking at the spirit of poverty that has kept your family in debt. And he is referencing his own law found in Proverbs chapter 6 verse 31. This is the statute of the kingdom. It says, yet if he is caught, he must pay 7-fold, though it costs him all the wealth of his house. This is the math of the kingdom. This is the legal precedent for your life right now. The enemy has been caught. Your faithfulness caught him. Your refusal to quit caught him. And now the judgment against him is shalom times 7. This is why you cannot look at your current situation with natural eyes. Your natural eyes see lost time. You look at the calendar and you panic. You think, I am too old. I missed my window. Everyone else is established and I am just starting over. That is a lie. You are not starting over. You are starting with shalom. You need to understand the math of compensation. In the kingdom economy, time is not linear, it is weighted. 1 day of God's favor is worth 1,000 days of human labor. You have to stop calculating your future based on human math. Human math says, if it takes 10 years to build $1 million business and I am 40 years old, I will be 50 before I make it. That is linear math. That is slave math. Kingdom math works on a different formula. The formula is this. The depth of the wilderness multiplied by the integrity of the heart equals the magnitude of the promotion. Look at the data points in Scripture. Look at Joseph again. He lost 13 years, 13 prime years of his youth rotting in a dungeon. By human standards, he was behind. His brothers were out building families and wealth while he was a slave. But when the shalom hit, when the verdict was read, Joseph didn't just get released. He was promoted to the second highest position in the known world in 24 hours. He bypassed every bureaucratic step. He bypassed every career ladder. He didn't have to work his way up from entry level. He went from prisoner to prime minister in 1 day. The 13 years were not lost. They were invested. And the payout was national authority. Look at Moses. 40 years in the desert, 40 years of watching sheep. It looked like a waste of a life. He went from a prince of Egypt to a nobody in the sand, but those 40 years were the compression chamber. When his Shalom came, he didn't just become a shepherd, he became the deliverer of a nation. He parted the Red Sea. He spoke face to face with God. The magnitude of his impact was directly proportional to the length of his obscurity. So I want you to apply this formula to your own life right now. Stop mourning the time you lost. Stop crying over the years the locust ate. Those years were not wasted, they were accumulating interest. You were in the pressure cooker, and now that the lid is coming off, you are going to experience acceleration that will make your head spin. This is what Amos 9:13 talks about when it says, "The plowman shall overtake the reaper." That is a picture of supernatural acceleration. Usually you plow, then you wait, then you plant, then you wait, then you reap. It takes months. But in the season of Shalom, the process is so fast that the guy plowing the ground for the next season runs into the back of the guy who is still harvesting the crop from the last season. The harvest is going to be so massive and so fast that you won't have time to store it all. This is why the enemy tried so hard to make you quit. He knew the lawsuit was about to be settled in your favor. He knew that if he could just get you to agree with him that you were a failure, he could stop the payout. But you didn't agree. You held on. And now the check is in the mail. But I need to warn you, there is a specific mindset you must adopt to receive this. You cannot receive Shalom with a victim mentality. A victim says, "Look what they did to me." A victor says, "Look what God is doing for me because of what they did to me." You have to shift your focus from the damage to the damages. In a lawsuit, the damage is the injury, but the damages are the money you get paid for the injury. Stop looking at the injury and start looking for the check. You need to start waking up every morning with a holy expectation. You need to look at your bank account, and instead of feeling fear, you need to declare Shalom. You need to look at your empty house, and instead of feeling lonely, you need to declare Shalom. You need to speak to the atmosphere and say, "I am open for business. I am ready to receive the sevenfold return that has been decreed for my life." This judicial verdict is irrevocable. God has slammed the gavel. The angels have been dispatched as bailiffs to enforce the judgment. The resources are moving. The connections are aligning. The health is returning. The joy is restoring. It is all heading your way like a tsunami. But, and this is a massive but, there is one thing that can block this delivery. It is not the devil. The devil has already been overruled. It is not people. People cannot stop what God has ordained. There is a barrier that is invisible to the naked eye, but it stands like a concrete wall between you and your Shalom. And the terrifying truth is that this wall was not built by your enemies, it was built by you. It is a psychological wall, constructed out of a specific type of trauma that you don't even know you have. And if we don't dismantle this wall right now, the blessing will pile up on the other side of it, and you will die of thirst while standing next to a reservoir. And the terrifying truth is that this wall was not built by your enemies, it was built by you. It is a psychological wall constructed out of a specific type of trauma that you do not even know you have. And if we do not dismantle this wall right now, the blessing will pile up on the other side of it, and you will die of thirst while standing next to a reservoir. I need you to be very honest with yourself for a moment. I want you to scan your internal emotional landscape. When I told you earlier that the judgment was Shalom and that you are about to receive sevenfold compensation, did you feel a surge of pure joy? Or did you feel a sudden tightening in your stomach? Did you feel a flash of excitement followed immediately by a wave of anxiety? Did a voice in the back of your head immediately whisper, "Don't get your hopes up, don't be foolish, you have been disappointed before"? If you felt that hesitation, do not be ashamed. It is not a lack of faith, it is a biological and spiritual survival mechanism. You are suffering from what I call spiritual post-traumatic stress disorder. You have been in the trenches of spiritual warfare for so long that your nervous system has actually become addicted to the chaos. You have become chemically dependent on the adrenaline of survival mode. Think about a soldier who has been on the front lines for 3 years. He sleeps in the mud, he eats while holding his rifle. He wakes up at every cracking twig. Every day is a fight for life. Then suddenly the war ends and he is sent home to a quiet house with a soft bed. He should be happy, he should be relieved, but he cannot sleep. The silence of the house feels dangerous, the softness of the bed feels like a trap. He finds himself pacing the floor at 3 a.m., looking for an enemy that is not there. Why? Because his body does not know how to process safety. His body interprets peace as a prelude to an ambush. That is exactly where you are spiritually. You have struggled for so long. You have lived check to check for so long. You have been lonely for so long. That struggle has become your normal. It has become your identity. You know how to survive a crisis. You are an expert at handling bad news. If I told you right now that a storm is coming, you would know exactly what to do. You would put on your armor, you would pray, you would fast, you would brace for impact. You are comfortable in the storm because you know the rules of the storm. But you do not know the rules of the blessing. You do not know how to handle peace. When things go quiet in your life, you get nervous. You start waiting for the other shoe to drop. You start thinking, it is too quiet. Something bad is about to happen. You sabotage your own moments of happiness because happiness feels suspicious. You provoke arguments in your relationships because conflict feels familiar. You unconsciously spend money when you get it because having savings feels unnatural. This is the wall. It is the fear of peace. You are terrified of shalom because receiving shalom means you have to let go of the warrior identity that has kept you safe for all these years. You are afraid that if you put your sword down and accept the blessing, you will be vulnerable. You are afraid that if you finally exhale and trust this new season, God will pull the rug out from under you and you will be crushed again. And deeper than the fear of peace is the voice of the imposter. This is the shadow that hides in the corner of your mind. As you stand on the threshold of your promotion, this voice gets louder. It says, "Who do you think you are? Do you really think you deserve to be wealthy? Do you really think you deserve to be happy? Look at your past. Look at your mistakes. You are not a king. You are a fraud. If people knew the real you, they wouldn't listen to you." This voice weaponizes your humility against you. It tells you that accepting God's abundance is arrogant. It tells you that you should be content with suffering. It tells you that your poverty is a badge of holiness. It tries to convince you that staying small is safe and stepping into your greatness is dangerous. It reminds you of everyone you left behind. It triggers survivor's guilt. It asks, why you and not them? Why should you get the breakthrough while your siblings are still struggling? So to avoid this guilt and this fear, you subconsciously block the blessing. You procrastinate on the paperwork. You don't make the phone call. You ignore the opportunity. You keep the door locked from the inside, not because you don't want the visitor, but because you don't feel worthy to host the guest. We need to shatter this lie right now. I want to offer you a reframe that will liberate your spirit. That fear you feel, that trembling in your hands when you think about the magnitude of what is coming, that hesitation, it is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of wisdom. It is the proof that you are ready. In the Bible, the people who were dangerous, the people who fell, were the ones who had no fear. Saul had no fear of the office of king. He took it with arrogance. Lucifer had no fear of the throne of God. He tried to seize it with pride. The narcissist does not tremble when given power. He feels entitled to it. The false prophet does not hesitate to speak. He loves the sound of his own voice. But look at the true chosen ones. Look at Moses. When God called him to deliver Israel, Moses didn't say, "Great. Finally someone noticed my talent." No. Moses trembled. He made excuses. He said, "Who am I?" He was terrified. Look at Jeremiah. He said, "I am but a child." Look at Isaiah. He said, "Woe is me, for I am undone." Why did they tremble? Because they understood the weight of the kavod. They understood that the calling of God is not a playground. It is a holy fire. Your fear is simply your spirit, acknowledging the holiness of what you are about to receive. The fact that you are afraid proves that you are not arrogant. The fact that you question your worthiness proves that you will not steal God's glory when the miracle happens. If you felt entitled to the shalom, you would destroy it. But because you feel unworthy of it, you will steward it. Your trembling hands are the safest place for God to put his treasure, because trembling hands grip tight. So I want you to perform a spiritual action right now to lower this wall. I am not asking you to move your body, but I am asking you to move your will. I want you to visualize that soldier inside of you, the one who is wearing the dirty armor, the one who is tired, the one who is pacing the floor, scanning for enemies. I want you to visualize yourself walking up to that soldier. In your mind's eye, I want you to look that soldier in the face, and I want you to say these words to your own soul. The war is over. You did your job. You kept us alive. Thank you. But you can stand down now. It is safe to sleep. It is safe to receive. Feel your nervous system responding to that permission. Give your body permission to switch from defense mode to reception mode. You do not need to fight for what is legally yours. You do not need to hustle for what has been decreed. You just need to open the door. You are not an imposter. You are a veteran who has finished the tour of duty. And veterans do not beg for their benefits. They receive them because they earned them. The shalom is your benefit package. It is your pension for the years of service in the wilderness. Take it without guilt. Take it without looking over your shoulder. But listen to me carefully. Once you lower this internal wall, once you silence the imposter voice and open the door to receive, you are going to face a new reality. The enemy outside knows that he can no longer block you with internal fear. He knows that you have dismantled the self-sabotage. He knows the check is in your hand. So he has changed his strategy completely. He is no longer trying to stop you from getting the blessing. He is now plotting to steal the blessing after you get it. He knows you are vulnerable in the transition. He knows you are not used to having resources. So he has laid 7 specific traps in the territory ahead of you. These traps are not obvious. They don't look like attacks. They look like opportunities. They look like friendships. They look like harmless distractions. And if you step into them, you will lose the shalom as fast as you received it. So he has changed his strategy completely. He is no longer trying to stop you from getting the blessing. He is now plotting to steal the blessing after you get it. He knows you are vulnerable in the transition. He knows you are not used to having resources. So he has laid 7 specific traps in the territory ahead of you. These traps are not obvious. They don't look like attacks. They look like opportunities. They look like friendships. They look like harmless distractions. And if you step into them, you will lose the shalom as fast as you received it. You need to switch your spiritual radio frequency right now. We are moving from the frequency of healing to the frequency of strategy. For the next few minutes, I am going to be your general. I am going to walk you through the minefield that is laid out between where you stand right now and the throne of your destiny. There are 7 specific forms of confrontation that the enemy uses against a chosen one who has just passed the identity test. He does not use these on beginners, he only uses these on veterans. You need to memorize these because I guarantee you will see at least 3 of them in the next 40 days. The first form of confrontation is what I call the counterfeit peace. This is the most subtle trap of all, because it feels exactly like what you have been praying for. You have been in a storm for years. You are tired. You are desperate for rest. So when the enemy sees the shalom coming, he sends a counterfeit version of rest to sedate you. Counterfeit peace is not the peace of God. The peace of God is active. It is alert. It refreshes you so you can build. Counterfeit peace is passive. It is numbness. It is anesthesia. It feels like a sudden desire to check out of life. You might find yourself wanting to sleep 14 hours a day. You might find yourself binging meaningless entertainment for days on end thinking, I deserve a break. You feel a heavy fog of lethargy settling over your spirit. You stop praying because you think the war is over. You stop fasting because you think you have arrived. The enemy is trying to put you into a spiritual coma right before your coronation. He wants you to be asleep when the door opens so you miss the entrance. He wants your spiritual muscles to atrophy so that when the weight of the glory comes, you are too weak to carry it. Recognize the difference. If your peace makes you sharp and grateful, it is from God. If your peace makes you dull, lazy, and disconnected, it is a trap. Wake up. Do not let the comfort of the bed steal the authority of the throne. The second form of confrontation is the old cycle invitation. This trap is designed to leverage your nostalgia against your future. The moment you step into your new season, the enemy will trigger a ghost from your past to knock on your door. And it will happen with precise timing. Usually it manifests as a text message from an ex who broke your heart 3 years ago, or a phone call from an old boss who fired you, or an old friend who betrayed you, suddenly reaching out to say, I was thinking about you. They will come bearing gifts. They will apologize. They will offer you a sense of familiarity. And because you are standing on the edge of the unknown, and the unknown is scary, that familiar hell will start to look like heaven. You will be tempted to romanticize the past. You will remember the good times and forget the abuse. You will remember the laughter and forget the tears. The enemy is trying to pull a Lot's wife on you. He wants you to look back so he can turn you into a pillar of salt. He wants to tether you to a dead cycle so you cannot walk into the living future. Listen to me. When the past calls, do not answer. That person is not coming back because they changed. They are coming back because the demons assigned to them recognize the light of Shalom on you, and they want to feed off your new harvest. If you open that door, you are not just letting a person back in. You are letting a legion back in. Keep the door shut. The third form of confrontation is the comparison trap. This is a sniper attack on your joy. As soon as you receive your shalom, as soon as you get your breakthrough, the enemy will immediately show you someone else whose breakthrough looks bigger, better, and faster than yours. You will get your new job and feel excited for about 10 minutes. Then you will open social media and see someone from your high school who just became a CEO. You will get your new car and feel blessed. Then you will pull up to a stoplight next to a Ferrari. You will finally get into a relationship and then see a couple that looks happier than you. The enemy does this to infect your shalom with the virus of ungratefulness. He knows that gratitude is the container that holds the blessing. If he can poke holes in your container with envy, the blessing will leak out. He wants you to look at your harvest and say, "Is this it?" He wants you to despise your day of small beginnings. Do not look to the left or to the right. Your journey is custom-made. Your timeline is unique. Comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20 is an act of violence against your own soul. Put blinders on. Bless what you have, and it will multiply. Curse what you have by comparing it, and it will wither. The fourth form of confrontation is the premature celebration. This is the trap that catches the most people. It is the trap of dropping your guard before the victory is secured. You see a sign of the breakthrough. Maybe you get a verbal offer for the contract. Maybe you have a great first date. Maybe the pain in your body stops for one day, and immediately you run to the phone. You tell everyone. You post it on Facebook. You buy the champagne. You start celebrating as if the ink is dry. But the enemy is watching. He is like Sanballat in the book of Nehemiah. When Nehemiah was rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, Sanballat tried to get him to come down to the plain of Ono to talk. He wanted Nehemiah to stop building and start celebrating or negotiating before the gates were hung. When you broadcast your victory before it is sealed, you alert every dormant enemy in your perimeter. You give them time to sabotage the deal. You give them time to whisper poison. You dissipate the spiritual pressure that was building up to birth the miracle. Silence is a weapon. In this next season, you need to move like a submarine. Run silent, run deep. Do not announce the deal until the money is in the bank. Do not announce the relationship until the ring is on the finger. Do not announce the healing until the doctor confirms it. Protect the baby. Do not expose your miracle to the atmosphere of the world until it is strong enough to breathe on its own. The fifth form of confrontation is the spirit of offense. This is the enemy's favorite way to cause an energy leak. He knows that you are now carrying high voltage power. He knows he cannot stop the power source. So he tries to cut the wire. He will send people to annoy you. He will send people to disrespect you. He will send a waiter to get your order wrong. He will send a driver to cut you off in traffic. He will send a family member to make a snide comment about your dreams. These are not random events. These are calculated setups. The enemy is trying to get you to take the bait. He wants you to engage in a low-level battle so you forfeit your high-level authority. He wants you to spend your million-dollar energy on a 10-cent argument. He wants you to get angry. He wants you to get bitter. Because when you are offended, you disconnect from the flow of God. Offense is a clog in the pipe of blessing. You have to decide right now that you are unoffendable. You are too big to bicker. You are too focused to fight. When someone disrespects you, look at them with spiritual eyes and see the demon trying to pull a reaction out of you and deny him the satisfaction. Smile and keep building. Your silence is the loudest rebuke to a fool. The sixth form of confrontation is the isolation of the lone wolf. This trap appeals to your pride and your pain. Because you have been hurt by people in the past, and because you just passed the identity test alone, the enemy will try to convince you that you don't need anyone. He will whisper, "You are the chosen one. Nobody understands you. They will just drag you down. You should do this alone. You should build the business alone. You should walk this path alone." This sounds noble. It sounds like strength, but it is suicide. In the animal kingdom, a predator never attacks the herd. It separates one animal from the herd and then attacks. Isolation is the precursor to destruction. Even Jesus had 12 disciples. Even Moses had Aaron and Hur holding up his arms. Even David had his mighty men. The shalom is too heavy for you to carry alone. God is going to send you new alliances in this season. He is going to send you destiny helpers. They won't look like your old friends. They might challenge you. They might intimidate you, but you need them. Do not let your independence become your prison. Discern the difference between a distraction and an ally. Cut the distraction, but cling to the ally. The seventh form of confrontation is the distraction of good. This is the most sophisticated trap of all. The enemy knows you will not fall for bad things. You won't fall for drugs or crime. So he tempts you with good things that are not God things. As soon as you step into your authority, opportunities will flood in. You will get 10 invitations, you will get 5 business ideas, you will get requests to join this board and that committee. They all look good. They all look like open doors, and you will be tempted to say yes to everything because you are starving for success. But this is a trap to dilute your focus. The enemy wants you to be a mile wide and an inch deep. He wants you to be so busy doing good things that you miss the one great thing you were born to do. He wants to clutter your calendar so you have no time for the secret place. You need the spirit of discernment more than ever. You need to learn the power of the holy no. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. Just because the door is open doesn't mean you should walk through it. Ask God which of these opportunities carries the weight of the kavod and which ones are just noise. Pick the one that scares you and excites you at the same time, and discard the rest. These are the 7 minds in the field: counterfeit peace, old cycle, invitation, comparison, premature, celebration, offense, isolation, and distraction. I want you to mentally scan your last 48 hours. Have you seen any of these already? Did an ex text you? Did you feel a wave of jealousy? Did you almost get into a fight over nothing? If you have, do not panic. Recognizing the trap is 90% of the victory. The enemy relies on the element of surprise, but now you have the map. You know his playbook. You are watching him trying to set the snare, and you are stepping right over it. But knowing the traps is one thing. Knowing how to walk is another. You can see the mines, but if you don't know the proper way to march, you might still trip. You need a new set of operating procedures. You cannot walk into a palace with the habits of a prisoner. You cannot manage millions with the mindset of a survivor. You need a protocol. You need to know exactly what to do with your body, your mind, and your spirit in the first 24 hours of your breakthrough. You need to know how to breathe so you don't hyperventilate when the blessing hits. You need to know how to stand so you don't collapse under the weight. Knowing what not to do keeps you safe, but knowing what to do makes you dangerous. And that is why we cannot stop here. We have cleared the minefield. Now we have to build the fortress. Knowing what not to do keeps you safe, but knowing what to do makes you dangerous. And that is why we cannot stop here. We have cleared the minefield. Now we have to build the fortress. You need a new operating system for this season. You have been running on the survival operating system for so long that you don't even know how to function in the thriving operating system. Survival is reactive. Thriving is proactive. Survival is begging. Thriving is commanding. To help you install this new system, I am going to give you 2 specific spiritual protocols and 2 witness accounts. These are not theories. These are battle-tested mechanics that I have seen work time and time again for chosen ones who were stuck exactly where you are right now. I want to start with evidence, because the spirit of doubt is still whispering in your ear asking, does this really happen? Does God really pay back 7-fold, or is this just motivational speaking? Let me tell you about a man we will call Thomas. Thomas was a graphic designer, a brilliant creative mind who loved God. But for 7 years he lived in what we call the locust years. He was the most talented person in every room, but he was consistently invisible. He would pitch ideas, and they would be ignored only for someone else to pitch the exact same idea a week later and get promoted. He was surviving on freelance scraps, living in a basement apartment, watching his peers buy homes and start families. He fell into the trap of endurance. He thought God was testing his humility, so he kept his head down and accepted the scraps. He prayed for restoration. He prayed, "God, please, just get me back to zero. Please, just help me pay the rent." But nothing shifted. The silence was deafening. Then he discovered the law of Shalom. He realized he was not waiting for charity, he was waiting for a judicial settlement. He shifted his prayer language. He stopped asking God for help and started thanking God for the settlement. He started waking up every morning and declaring, "I am open to receive the sevenfold return for my 7 years of invisibility." 3 weeks later, he got a call from a company he had applied to 5 years ago. They didn't just want to hire him. The CEO told him, "We have been looking for a creative director, and every time we interview someone, your name keeps coming up in our spirit. We don't just want you as an employee. We want to offer you a partnership with equity." In one signed contract, Thomas didn't just get a salary that covered his rent. He received a percentage of ownership that paid him for the 7 years he had lost. The back pay came in a lump sum. That is the Amos 9:13 anointing. The plowman overtook the reaper. He bypassed the ladder of corporate climbing and went straight to the boardroom. That is what Shalom looks like. It is not linear progress. It is quantum leaping. But Thomas would have missed that opportunity if he had walked into that meeting with the smell of desperation on him. He walked in with the frequency of a king. And to maintain that frequency, you need a protocol to manage your internal state. This brings us to the first framework, the decompression protocol. You need this because your nervous system is fried. You are walking around with high levels of spiritual cortisol. You are hyper-vigilant, constantly scanning for threats. And you cannot receive a blessing when you are in a defensive crouch. You have to signal to your spirit that the war is over. I want you to learn this 3-step mental maneuver. You can do this anywhere, even while driving or lying in bed. It is a mental ritual to power down your defense shields. Step 1 is the disconnect. In your mind, visualize yourself wearing a heavy suit of armor. It is dented, it is scratched, it is covered in the dust of the wilderness. It has served you well, but it is heavy. I want you to mentally visualize yourself unbuckling the chest plate. Feel the weight lifting off your ribs. Visualize yourself taking off the helmet. Feel the air hitting your mind for the first time in years. You are not abandoning the fight. You are acknowledging that the battle is finished. Say to your spirit, "I am disconnecting from the frequency of warfare." Step 2 is the assessment. Now that the armor is off, scan your perimeter. In the past, you scanned for threats. Now, I want you to scan for safety. Look at your life right now. Are you in immediate danger? No. Is there a roof over your head? Yes. Is there breath in your lungs? Yes. Your brain ignores these safety signals because it is addicted to danger. You have to force your brain to acknowledge safety. Say to your spirit, "I am safe. The predator is gone." Step 3 is the permission. This is the hardest part. You have to give yourself permission to enjoy the silence. You feel guilty when you are not struggling. You feel like you are being lazy. You have to break that agreement with struggle. Say to your spirit, "I give you permission to rest. I give you permission to be happy without looking over your shoulder." Practice this decompression protocol every night before you sleep. If you go to sleep in war mode, you will wake up in war mode. You have to decompress so that your spirit can download the instructions for the next day. Now that you have decompressed, you are ready for the second framework. This is the most critical mechanic of receiving. It is called the receiver's Stance. Most chosen ones walk through life with a spiritual clenched fist. You are holding on so tight to what little you have because you are afraid of losing it. You are holding on to your sanity, holding on to your few dollars, holding on to your dignity. Your knuckles are white from gripping the steering wheel of your life. But here is the physics of the kingdom. You cannot catch a blessing with a closed fist. As long as you are gripping your survival, you cannot grasp your revival. God is trying to hand you the check, but your hands are too busy holding on to the crumbs. I want you to perform a mental adjustment of your posture right now. Imagine your hands. In the spirit, they are clenched, tight, ready to punch, ready to fight, ready to hold on. I want you to mentally open them. Turn your palms upward. This is the universal sign of surrender and reception. When your palms are up, you are saying three things to the universe. First, you are saying, I trust you. A person with open hands is vulnerable. You are telling God, I trust that you will not hurt me while I am open. Second, you are saying, I release the past. You are letting go of the trauma, the pain, and the identity of the victim. You are dropping the heavy baggage you have been carrying. And third, you are saying, I am ready to carry the new. Isaiah 43 says, Behold, I do a new thing. Do you not perceive it? You cannot perceive the new thing if you are obsessed with protecting the old thing. The receiver's stance is not just a body position, it is a heart position. It is the posture of a son or daughter who knows their father is generous. When you walk into a negotiation, when you walk into a date, when you deal with a crisis, check your spiritual hands. Are they fists or are they open vessels? Fists repel shalom. Open hands attract shalom. Now, I know some of you are thinking, that sounds great for money, but what about love? What about the people who hurt me? Can shalom fix a broken heart? Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah was a chosen one who had a gift for healing others. But because of her gift, she attracted broken men. She attracted narcissists who wanted to feed off her light. She spent 10 years in a cycle of toxic relationships, always giving, always fixing, never receiving. She thought this was her cross to bear. She thought being a godly woman meant suffering in silence. Then she passed the identity test. She realized she was not a rehab center for broken men. She was a queen searching for a king. She applied the receiver's stance. She stopped gripping these relationships out of fear of being alone. She opened her hands and let the toxic people fall away. And then the test came. The trap of the counterfeit peace appeared. A man showed up who was nice. He was decent. He went to church. He checked all the boxes. But her spirit said no. In the past, she would have settled because he was better than the others. But she stood in her new identity and said, My shalom is not just decent, it is divine. I will wait for the sevenfold. 2 months later, she met a man who didn't need fixing. He was already whole. He didn't want to take from her, he wanted to pour into her. He honored her calling. He protected her peace. She realized that if she had settled for the counterfeit, she would have missed the kingdom connection. Her shalom wasn't just a husband, it was a destiny partner. These stories are not fairy tales, they are precedents. In the court of law, a precedent is a past ruling that guarantees future rulings. Thomas and Sarah are legal precedents for your case. If God did it for them, He is legally obligated to do it for you, because God is no respecter of persons, but He is a respecter of faith. You have the diagnosis. You know it was battle fatigue, not depression. You have the revelation. You know it was an identity test, not an endurance test. You have the verdict. You know the law of shalom is active. You have the map. You know the 7 traps of the enemy. You have the protocols. You know how to decompress and how to stand. Everything is prepared. The table is set in the presence of your enemies. The angels are standing at attention, waiting for the command. The atmosphere is pregnant with your miracle. There is only one thing left to do. We have talked, we have learned, we have analyzed, but talking doesn't seal the deal. Action seals the deal. We need to move from the classroom to the throne room. We need to officiate this transition. You are not just a viewer of this video, you are a participant in a divine ceremony. I need you to shift your focus one last time. I need you to summon every ounce of faith you have left in your body. Shake off the lethargy, shake off the doubt. The general is about to call your name. The time for teaching is over. The time for activation is now. If you are lying down, I want you to wake up your spirit. If you are driving, I want you to grip the wheel with a new authority. We are about to seal this verdict in the courts of heaven. We are about to bind the retaliation of the enemy. And we are about to commission you into your office as a ruler. Are you ready to receive your crown? Do not close your eyes if you are driving, but if you are safe, I want you to close them now. If you cannot stand physically, I want you to stand up on the inside. Visualize your spirit rising from the bed, rising from the chair, rising from the ashes of your past. You are entering the Holy of Holies. You are standing before the Judge of the universe. The gallery is filled with the great cloud of witnesses. Joseph is there. David is there. They are watching you. I want you to spiritually place your hand over your heart. Feel the beat. That is the drum of a survivor who is about to become a conqueror. We are going to pray a prayer that will vibrate through the dimensions. This is not a request. This is a decree. In the name of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, I hereby open the scrolls of destiny over this chosen one. I declare that the atmosphere of this room is now under the jurisdiction of the kingdom of heaven. Father, we present to you this veteran of the spiritual war. We acknowledge their scars. We acknowledge the nights they cried alone. We acknowledge the betrayal, the isolation, and the crushing weight they have carried without complaining. We present their faithfulness as evidence in this court. And based on this evidence, I hereby seal the verdict of the identity test. I declare that the season of testing is legally concluded. The endurance trial is over. I strip off the identity of the victim. I strip off the identity of the slave. I strip off the identity of the orphan. And I place upon their shoulders the heavy mantle of sonship and daughtership. I seal them with the ring of authority. I seal the verdict of Shalom over their life. I command the portals of compensation to open now. I speak to the years that the locust has eaten, and I command them to vomit up the harvest. I speak to the stolen finances. I speak to the stolen relationships. I speak to the stolen joy. By the authority of Proverbs 6:31, I command the enemy to pay back sevenfold. I declare that the interest has compounded and the payout is released. I bind every retaliatory spirit that is waiting outside this moment. I bind the spirit of counterfeit peace. You will not sedate them. I bind the spirit of the old cycle. You will not pull them back. I bind the spirit of comparison. I bind the spirit of premature celebration. I bind the spirit of offense. I bind the spirit of isolation. I bind the distraction of good. I declare that their discernment is sharpened like a razor. They will see the trap before they step in it. I activate the thriving operating system in their mind. I delete the poverty mindset. I delete the survival mindset. I download the blueprint of the ruler. I declare that they will handle millions with integrity. I declare that they will handle influence with humility. I declare that the kavod weight of glory is settling upon them now, not to crush them, but to crown them. Chosen one, hear the word of your commander. You are commissioned, You are authorized, you are funded, the wilderness is behind you, the promised land is beneath your feet. Do not look back. Do not apologize for your blessing. Walk in your shalom. It is done. It is sealed. It is finished. Go.